Welcome to Garden Wise Adventures. My name is Malie. I live in Utah Zone 6/7 and this is the beginning of June and it's time for me actually to start planting my fall gardens. Now I grow most of the fruit and vegetables that I eat and I do that by extreme succession planting. So let's go look at my garden beds, talk a little bit about them and talk about how I succession plan and then show you what seeds I'm going to be planting so that we can have a fall harvest. Now I have 17 raised beds. Most of them are 4 feet wide by 8 feet long. Some of them are the smaller round ones, which are 4 feet around. And the ones down here at the bottom, generally speaking, end up being my summer vegetables. Now, the reason for that is because this area down here traps cold air. And the winter vegetables that I grow, because I also grow over the winter under hoops, they have not done as well as they've done on the top of the hill over here, where you can see the hoops starting to peek out a little bit. Let me go show you another area where I plant winter vegetables. Now this is the south side of my house. It's between 2 homes and it's surrounded by a fence, so it ends up being both the hottest area on my property and the coldest. It's the hottest during the day and the coldest at night. I guess because it's at the bottom of the hill and it's got fences around it, it traps the cold air down here. But then the summer sun beats against the side of the house. So the temperature swings here during the day right now are between 110, while the rest of my property is in the low 90s. And then at nights, this will get down in the 60s while the rest of my property stays in the 70s. In the winter, you'll have the same fluctuation of temperatures, but this is where winter vegetables do the very, very best. So I like to do the tomatoes early here, keep the tomatoes until about the end of September, and then plant my winter vegetables under hoops over on this side. So we're not talking necessarily about winter vegetables, we're talking about fall vegetables, but that is why I don't plant any of my fall crops here on this side, because I like to reserve these beds for the winter. So these beds are on a slope, a pretty steep slope, that faces west. It also gets a lot of south exposure, so it is in full sun. The cold air from the mountains rush past here, and it seems to keep this area a little warmer, barring the bottom bed right here, which is up against another fence. And this does tend to stay a little tiny bit cooler down here at the base than it does at the top. It also gets a little less sun down at the base. So this is prime area to rotate my winter, fall, and spring crops. So we just recently did a video where we've started harvesting my spring crops. Let's see if the little last quail egg is hatched. Yes, look, the last one. Well, maybe that's not a crack, I don't know, but we had 8 in here. Now we have 1 left. But anyway, this is where I have started harvesting my early spring crops. These were planted in March. This is June. We're going to be harvesting my shallots probably tomorrow. They are fully ready to be harvested. They've started to die back, so I need to get those out of the ground. Cabbages still have a little ways to go. They have several weeks left. They're starting to form heads, but I say it's going to be probably till July before I harvest these. We're also going to harvest the onions in July. We're just about done harvesting the cauliflower. We harvested all the yellow and the purple. We've got a little, which was supposed to be a green head forming. It's still got about a week left, maybe 2. Then we have a bed here that had my peas. I also tried to start beets and carrots, but the quail really, really love to come in here and dust bathe. Not that there's a lot of dust to bathe in, but they roll around in here. And I think they eat the baby seedlings because I'm not seeing any left. I had underneath that, yeah, I'm not seeing any left. We had carrots coming up also, but there's nothing left in here. So we're going to have to plan on something else for this. This large tangle of vines right here is a Chinese mountain yam that just is permanently in this bed now. I've tried digging out the roots, and the roots, I can't find them no matter how deep I go. So we just allow the Chinese mountain yam to grow in here. But you can see that there are quite a few beds that are either empty, mostly empty, or that are going to be empty by the end of July. So this is how I succession plan. I make sure that I keep the beds that I know are the best for the winter crops. I put summer crops in those that can be harvested by the end of September. The early spring crops I also carefully plan, because I could put short growing crops like cucumbers and summer squash in those beds. And I'll have to choose which ones I use for cucumbers and summer squash. And then the rest of them will go into fall crops. The ones that have the very quick growing summer crops like the cucumbers and the summer squash will also be a winter bed. Now these hoops are very easy to move. I can move them from bed to bed, and I'll link a video up above that shows how I built them. But today, we're not going to exactly decide which beds to use right now, other than the bottom bed is going to be for some squash that I already have the seeds started for. But today we're going to start the seeds. So let's go inside and show you which seeds we're going to start. So now we're back inside and I'm getting ready to plant my seeds. It's in the middle of the night. The lighting might be a little off, so I'm sorry about that. But this is the time that I have to plant my seeds right now for the fall. Now I did plant my squash. I harvested my shallots and I planted my squash in the bed that the shallots are in. And the bed that the garlic was in, that it was empty, that's going to be where I'm going to put some of my fall crops. So let's show you what I'm going to plant. Now the first thing that I'm going to plant are my regular cabbages. I love cabbage. I have, I think 9 of them that are going to be harvested in about a month. And I think I might plant 12 more for the fall. We'll see. They last a long time in the refrigerator, and I do like to make sauerkraut. So the first one is Glory of Enkuben. I can never pronounce this one, but it's this one. It's a rounder head, and it's really sweet and delicious. We've got the early Jersey Wakefield, which grows a little bit quicker and has a pointier head, but it's also delicious. And then because I can't learn my lesson, we're going to try red cabbage again. I've only been able to harvest really tiny heads of the red cabbage, but we're just going to keep trying because I think it's really pretty. So we've got the cabbages. The next one we're going to plant are the collards. Now I really like collards, and they're better in the cooler weather. But here in Utah, by August, we start getting cooler evenings. That's the beginning of fall. You could see the colors in the mountains starts to change around that time. So when I lived in Southern California, August meant a lot of heat. Here in Utah, you start the cool down. It's still warm, but you do start a cool down in the evenings. And I'm hoping that I can put these out in the garden by the beginning of August, and then they should be ready to harvest by October. Next thing that I'm going to plant is my very, very favorite kohlrabi. I've already eaten all the ones that I've harvested from the spring, so I am going to be planting quite a few of these, probably 12 of the kohlrabi. Now this one is a very, very large variety called Super Smelts. It doesn't get hard and woody, and it's huge. Sometimes I've had kohlrabi this big, and they are absolutely delicious. So that's all I'm going to be planting right now. I already have kale out in the garden. I already have Swiss chard out in the garden. And when I start my seeds for my winter crops in a few weeks, I think I will plant more of the kale and more of the chard. So let's get these planted really quickly, get it done, and then we'll have our seeds started so we can have a fall harvest. Now the seed starting mix that I'm using is just used seed starting mix from earlier this spring. Hopefully it does well. I found that I can reuse it a couple of times before it starts being a problem. So this has only been used once for my spring seeds, and I reclaimed it after I transplanted them. So the very first thing that I'm going to do, because I will never remember what I put in. I always feel like I'm going to remember what I put in each cell, but I don't. First thing that we're going to do is we're going to put in the tags. We've got the kohlrabi. Let's actually do it this way. Let's put the kohlrabi right there. We're going to have 2 kohlrabis. So we'll have 12. We'll have 1 flat of red cabbage, 1 of collards. Actually, I've got 2 kohlrabi tags, so that's good. These are my used tags that I just use over and over and over. Then we're going to put my regular cabbage one, another cabbage. There. I don't know how many cabbages we're going to plant, but probably not that many. But anyway, they're all labeled now, so however many I want to use, we can use. So this one says Glory of Cabbage. That's the one that we're going to be planting. And the thing that I do is I just go and I rough up the seed starting mix, and then I'll put 2 or 3 seeds in each one, and then I will thin them out. This is what cabbage seeds look like. They're very, very tiny, and they need to be planted about 1/4 inch deep. And these are old seeds, so I might put more than 2 or 3 and just be sure to thin them out. So now we've got that one planted. We'll just tap that down. Early Jersey Wakefield cabbage. You know what? I am thinking that I'm not going to plant that much cabbage. So these will just be empty. And then if I decide to plant anything else in there, we'll have those ready. So we're just going to put my Early Jersey Wakefield cabbage in here. A few in each hole, and then we can thin them out if needed. Next is the collards. Next will be the red cabbage. And then last will be the kohlrabi. Let's get that tamped down here. Now the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to put vermiculite over the top. Now vermiculite is an expanded mineral. So this is just a natural mineral. It really absorbs the water and nutrients easily, and it absorbs a lot of them, and then it slowly releases it. It also tends to have like an antifungal or something like that. I don't know if it's antifungal or antibacterial, but whatever it does have is it stops the green algae from forming very much, and then it also stops damping off problems. So I try to always, whenever I plant seeds, to top them up with vermiculite. It's really been a game changer for my seed starting. And I don't need to water the seeds as often because it does hold the water so well. Next, we're going to water them in. I'm going to use a sprayer because I don't want to dislodge the seeds. And then from that point on, I'm going to pour water into this tray and just bottom water them after that. It's a lot quicker, it's a lot easier, and you get a better, deeper watering that way than if you try to water over the top. Got my 2-gallon sprayer, which makes it really easy. I don't have to pump, I just spray. Makes my hands not get tired as easy. And I also made sure that the soil was nice and moist before I planted the seeds, which makes it a lot easier, because if I tried to water these with an overhead spray like this while it was completely dry, it would be impossible. I would be here forever trying to get these wet. But right now, I'm just trying to make sure that the seeds are watered in. There's no air pockets, and everything is nice and moist. Next, I'm going to put a humidity dome over the top and stick these under my lights, and I'll show you where that is. You can see when I was growing my spring crops how many fungus gnats there were. I have yet to find a way to get rid of fungus gnats other than keeping the grow room as empty as possible. That's why there's nothing in here right now. But we do have our spring crops ready. These lights are all on timers, and I'm excited. So the timers on all my lights just started to turn off, and they turn off at 11 p.m. So that means it's bedtime and it's time to end this video. But I would love to hear if you plant fall crops and what your favorite fall crops are and what time of year you plant them. So hopefully this video has been helpful for you. If it has been helpful, I hope you like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and go have a wonderful garden adventure.